It's shaping up to be another night of horrors as we approach the midnight shift whistle all across Innsmouth Hive. The Corridor 54 murderer has struck again, this time leaving 8 skinned and headless bodies hung up by their ankles. This time, all of the victims were Arbites, and they were hung outside of the Hall of Justice on Sublevel 1. In response to this string of grisly murderers, the Arbites have pulled all the way back into the mid-hive bastions. Some have even begun to speculate on who this murderer is and if it is only one killer. Who knows, with the Arbites tucking tail and running, the Corridor 54 murderer might just be our Dark Knight.
Rat man.
Cleaning up the streets for us. We are your lighthouse void beacon in the cold, vast sea of stars, 665.66 UHM Chemrat Radio. Tonight, we are once again crashing Mama Bexy's backroom lounge, bringing you only the best as long as they'll have us. I'll be your chain-rattling ghost who also hosts Goblin King, joined today by my devilish trickster spirit co-host. Watch out, he might steal your keys, Marky.
I'll steal your toes, too. You watch out.
Should have done toes, steal your toes. Our interior redecorating expert and furniture flinging poltergeist beast.
I was curious who that was going to be. Well, interior decorator. Who the fuck?
Yeah, interior decorator. 12 gauge works great. Paint that wall.
I totally thought when he said midnight shift whistle, I thought he said midnight shit whistle. I was like,
no. But I do have to comment.
I mean, to people in the Hive, midnight shit whistle probably works.
I've been there.
Right.
After
somehow,
those chimichangas.
And somehow still managing to stay out of the spirit realm, despite the fact that we keep sending him off to check out various death worlds, is Kevin. Tell us, how was Magrathea?
That was, I don't remember. I just blanked it out, and we're just not going to talk about that again.
It was a taste sensation.
Guys,
you still got
the
actual fingers and toes?
Flash cloning might not be working.
Wait, Magrathea is like the Dracaria world, right?
No. Magrathea is the planet in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that makes other planets.
Oh.
That's where I heard.
Magora. Is that what I'm thinking of? Magora?
Gamora.
Gamora is the big dark elf.
I was going to say,
planet, sort of city, sort of.
Goth?
Gamora, I think.
Goth? Yeah,
Gamora.
I'll become Gamora, let me tell you.
But yeah, since we did, that was the whole inside joke last time, since we were doing
world
crafting,
building. I get it. I get it.
You're supposed to be dead,
a bridge. It's a bridge.
Yeah, I thought Kevin was going to be nerdy enough to be like, "Oh, Magrathea."
It's been so long since I've seen.
It wasn't a Star Trek reference, so
yeah. I've seen Star Trek more recently than I've seen Hitchhiker.
I'm just fucking with you.
Is that the M-class planet?
Is that the
M-class planet? That's a thing, right? I'm just going to go with that being a thing.
Yeah.
No, as a G-class.
You should have seen at work. There's this guy
star.
who was like, me and Greg were talking about Warhammer or something, and my coworker's like, "Man, you're a fucking nerd." And I was like, "What's up, dude? What type of surf wax do you use?" For his like surfboards. He's like, "Oh, I use this." I was like, "You fucking dork." And like he looked at me and I was like, "You're just as much of a fucking nerd as I am about stupid surfing. What type of board you use, bruh?" And he looked at me and he had nothing to say. And me and Greg were just fucking dying. Like
that's next time you hear him talk about fantasy football, just be like, "Oh, how's your D&D going?"
Oh yeah, no, dude, I already like the guys at work know, like they stand nowhere. Like they're like, "There's nothing we can make fun of him." Like,
what kind of surf wax you shove up your ass?
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, "You fucking." That was the best though. I was like, "Fucking dork,"
which is kind of funny because
it's a whale penis.
That also makes it funny.
Kind of.
You gotta wax up that whale penis.
Why are you thinking? Did you just get it? You just got that right now.
You got to break Mark at least once an episode.
Oh fuck! It's kind of whale penisy if you think about it.
That's the joke.
All right, guys. This episode,
the joke started to hit.
Oh man, this train has run off the tracks.
It's this mandatory podcast fuck around time. All right, guys. So this is our 5th episode of Lorus Obscurus. and the last of our ghostly episodes, at least for now, as we're going to set off into cryptid territory over the next couple of months. So we wanted to wrap it up by going over all the different types of hauntings, something that we haven't talked about yet. To jump right into it, we're going to talk about residual haunting activity. We've brought up residual hauntings. We've talked about it as we've brought up our own stories and all that. Actually, we've brought up stories that match almost each one of these. But a residual haunting happens when something incredibly traumatic or stressful occurs in a single location, such as a rape or a murder. In theory, negative energy is released and it leaves an imprint on the local area. Ghosts in these haunts Ghosts in these haunts are unaware of what's going on, and they may not even be ghosts. They may just be an echo of time, something that's kind of trapped in the area, replaying whatever that trauma was over and over. These can also be called stone tapes, which I found pretty interesting, as the energy is seen to be imprinting on a piece of stone, much the same way that you might record film onto tape. So examples of this would be higher levels of humidity with cold spots, apparitions that repeat actions like a moving picture. So they would be stuck in a loop. You might see somebody walk down a hallway.
That's kind of what I pictured in my head when you described it. I don't know. You probably did, but the Stalker video games and like the Metro games had scenes where like the ghosts like walk down a hallway, hit the end, there's a flash, and then it starts back at the beginning and it does it again.
In the Division 2, you can find echoes on the ground and they'll replay like a digital scene. And that very much makes me think of this. Days Gone does it too. When you're investigating things.
Did they do it in like Cyberpunk?
I think The Witcher does it as well.
Where it's like you see the time echo spell thing.
Yeah. Dude, fucking Prometheus.
Yes. Where they rebuild.
You're right. Yeah.
When they play the recording, it's just a projection of them walking. You want to talk about fucking world. Spooky, dude? Like the dude fucking running and then dead?
Yeah, that was cool. That's a good image of it too.
Other examples would be footsteps or people talking just out of understandable range. Mark, did you have an example you wanted to bring up?
Fuck that.
Yeah. For the last thing we were talking about or this?
Stuff? Yeah. The residual haunting. It looked like you were about to say something.
No.
He was thinking about maps.
I was just shitting my pants.
Just farting.
Examples in the Warhammer 40K world would be psychic imprints left in a location by a horrible act or maybe a demon incursion, places where demons have actually managed to break into the real world. I imagine there's examples of this in probably the Eisenhorn and Ravener books.
The gears started turning when you started talking. I was like pretty sure I've seen this in Ravener and Eisenhorn. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but one of the...
I feel like at one point there was like a murder in there. Yeah.
Well, there's even bigger scale than that. There was like a warp storm or something, and it blew out all the windows on a planet and killed everybody there. And a rogue trader smuggler was going out there and getting the glass from all the windows, but it was tainted by chaos. So it was residual chaos energy. It was trapped in the glass. Crazy. So it's kind of like what you're saying, where it's imprinting. And then they were using that glass in a chaos ritual. They would polish it into like a mirror and use it to like view through time or something like that. It's been a long time since I've read that book. But if I remember everything correctly, that's kind of how that worked. It was interesting.
I thought there had been, maybe it was one of the Arbites books, because I've read a couple of those too, where they're doing an investigation into like mass ritual murder. And the person, the investigator, and that's why I thought it had been Ravenhorn Ravener Eisenhorn, but maybe it was, I can't remember her name, but the Arbites character that's been featured in a couple of different books. And like they glimpse what happened. Like they're able to like peer into the warp enough to see the last minutes of all of these people getting like brutally fucking murdered for this ritual.
Oh, that's cool.
It's it. Crazy shit.
Yeah.
The next one we wanted to bring up was poltergeist activity. Poltergeist is a German word which means loud noise or noisy spirit. Activity starts small with knocks and bangs, then furniture will start to move around by itself. Generally, it's increasing and eventually voices and even appearances of full apparitions can occur. Violent shifts like furniture slamming or sliding might occur as well. That's the joke of the interior decorating poltergeist. This is the most terrifying, but also the rarest type of haunting that occurs. Tom, you have thoughts on this one?
Oh, I fucking hate it.
I got a question. Why do the Germans invent a word for building your house on an Indian burial ground?
They can see into the future, man. Poltergeist, the movie.
Oh, is that the name?
So, yeah, the movie series called Poltergeist is about a family who they buy a house that happens to be built on an Indian burial ground.
It's not. No, it's not Indian burial ground. It's just a.
One of them is an Indian burial ground.
The first one is just a graveyard.
Is it? Oh,
Pet Cemetery.
So they moved. But what's funny is, so first I guess it's a cemetery, and then the second one it's an Indian burial ground. I'm like, man, this family has the worst.
The worst luck.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
same family.
So I'm pretty sure the first movie it is a graveyard, but it's a graveyard like a residential graveyard, like a residential school graveyard. So it's a graveyard of Native Americans. And in order to save money, instead of digging up and moving the graves
they
to
just
another
left
graveyard, they just moved the headstones.
No, it's not, because traditionally Native, it's just a graveyard. The second one
is the Indian burial
is
ground.
like Indian burial ground, like old school, like,
and it's like a cave underground.
Well, what it is like a preacher in like the cowboy days, like basically took this, like, took all these people underground.
Oh yeah,
and like starved them to death.
And he killed them all.
Yeah, basically, and that was like Indian burial ground. Like he was possessed or some shit.
Like,
nonsense.
I need to rewatch all those movies. They're all great.
The first one is just like, because that's why there was like the woman walking around in like the white dress. Like the first one was just a graveyard that they didn't move the bodies, and then them trying to make the pool is when they were like, like out of the mud and shit.
Those were real skeletons.
Have you never seen that?
That's Poltergeist.
No way. Poltergeist is a great movie.
Poltergeist is probably my first like scary movie that I watched. I watched it when I was like 10.
I think The Omen was the first scary movie I watched when I was like 10.
Not only were the skeletons in the pool real skeletons, but the actors didn't know that there were skeletons in the pool.
Oh, fuck.
So that was 100% like real reactions.
Yep.
Dude, that's nuts.
Makes for a good movie.
Yeah.
The poor girl.
You need to do that more.
I don't know why, but it reminded me of. Have you guys seen Workaholics? Those three actors.
Yes.
I've seen it.
Have you seen that new movie? Or it's not a new movie, but I think it's called like Game Over Man or something like that. Have you seen that?
Yeah, the one. There's some great fucking scenes.
There's these
in that
bodyguards that are trying to find them. And one of the dudes is like, oh, he's trying to find me. I'm going to hide in the closet. And the guy's like looking around, or I'm trying to remember how it played out, but basically it ended up with him. He's like, he's going to find me. I need to do something. So he puts a belt around his neck. He puts his dick in his hand. He pretends to be dead while the guy opens so the guy opens the closet and he's like dead with his dick in his hand, and the guy's like, oh, the poor bastard.
Fucking Dave Carradine himself. Jesus.
Yeah.
It was
so
great.
Poltergeist activity is one of the oldest types of hauntings, with reports actually stretching back into ancient Rome.
That's actually like my big fear is poltergeist type shit, where you can't see them.
Yeah.
There's a video. I'll save it for the story. But I've seen something I was going to.
And poltergeist is the one where like shit's, like you said, Ryan, like shit's moving around, and
this is the most violent. Yeah, this is the most violent type.
This is like books flying across a room, chairs moving around, doors opening and closing.
The Conjuring. The Conjuring stuff is poltergeisty.
Paranormal activity.
We'll hit the demonic side here in a second. So most cases happen around teenage girls. This is leading to theories that it's the girls themselves manifesting these energies and unknowingly causing all of this haunting activity and havoc.
Hormonal fucking poltergeist.
Yeah. That's a legit thing. This is the prepubescent teenage energy.
That's so fucking dumb. Like
it's a teenage girl just throwing fucking books around.
Dude, that's so oh my god. The amount of shit you could start with that, like seriously, it's she shouldn't have dressed that provocatively and thought about fucking demons. Like it's
but that's the last like 600 years of culture of westernized culture at the same time.
Just blaming them for themselves. Like that's so fucked.
No two are ever quite the same, other than the violence that's usually involved in the actions. Normally, these all center also around one person. Yeah.
So dumb.
So normally these hauntings center around one person in the house or in the situation. So there's one person who seems to be the focus, but everything around is still affected.
So it almost like latches onto the one person.
Yes. Yeah. Think of The Conjuring. Other theories link this activity to the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is demonic activity. This could be a bunch of spirits latching onto something like the movie Poltergeist.
So as Poltergeist is the one that Tom doesn't fuck with, I don't fuck with demonic shit. I'm not scared of a lot of things, but demonic shit, like
you say that like I do. You're all Tom doesn't like this, but I don't fuck with. I'm like, yeah, I fuck with demons. Yeah,
but like this is square up, motherfucker.
Yeah, you don't.
Square up, bitch.
Like, why you gotta word it? Like
Come at me, bro. Come at me.
Tom doesn't like.
Tom doesn't fuck with teenage ghosts. I don't fuck with demons.
Jesus Christ.
So poltergeists are not teenage ghosts. An explanation for poltergeist activities is, and let me phrase it this way, because this will make sense of how it ties into Warhammer 40K, which we're going to get to in here in a second. It's the idea of when you hit your teens, you start to express psychic potential, which is important. Yeah. So these are very, very powerful. Yeah.
No, it was just my laughing hysterically about that was just like the fucking masochistic like male influence, male thought behind it cracked me up, because it's like it's literally
all that puritanical bullshit.
It's like it's the teenage girl's manifestation, and it's like I
100%.
bet you fucking got mad at her because she turned down your advances, so you fired her and then blamed her because what she was wearing.
And now she's
you fucking fuck.
Yep.
100%. She's haunting us. Like
so. At least in our modern, Western culture, most of this shit has religious ties and religious. I mean, almost all of this crap is tied to religion.
Going back past even Western, Christianized religion, going back into the like pagan religions, like the witches and all that nonsense.
Careful,
I don't
careful
remember
now.
all the specific words.
Ryan's a witch
for that one. I know. I'm sure he gets what I'm getting at here. Like that, that ties back
Ryan's
all
a
the way to
bitch.
that as well.
Hey, but there's a specific. God damn it, Tom. Trying to be serious. It's not working.
Gotcha.
So
I'm gonna throw fucking chicken bones at you, motherfucker.
Just weave them into
the
my beard.
bitch now?
So there's a paradigm shift though, because in a lot of pagan traditions, there's a ventrification of the medicine woman and the witch and the person who is more spiritual and more connected to earth. And the Christian tradition,
and then they flipped
those people. Yeah.
But it's the same. It's the same person along the way. It's just one of them. It flipped the perception of them, but it's the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. So poltergeist activity is often vengeful and rooted in a lot of anger, which is it's scary. It's scary as shit.
I was gonna say, isn't it kind of weird that like a lot of these types of hauntings or ghosts are tied to religion when religion doesn't believe in ghosts? Or is that a
no
statement?
the Catholic religion very much believes in all of this stuff.
The Holy Ghost, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Of course they believe in him.
Well, no, because like when
don't you have a candle like sitting in? How do you not know this shit?
Santa Maria.
All right.
Yeah. So
that is the wife's candle. All right.
You're like, I just light it because she told me.
And don't you disrespect the Virgin Mary. All right? No.
So the Catholic religion splits the afterlife into three different planes. There's heaven and there's hell, which obviously, are very central to Westernized society. And then there's purgatory, and purgatory is like this lost space which crosses over with our world. And I don't want to get on a super like religious bent, but a lot of Catholic Christian religions mix a lot of mysticism and magic into how they work. They just don't call it mysticism and magic because they're trying to pretend that it's not. You don't call it magic, you call it miracles. You don't call them ghosts, you call them spirits. You don't say that
Angels.
They're trapped on Earth.
That's kind of funny.
You don't say they're trapped on Earth because they were horribly murdered. You say that they're stuck to Earth because they need to atone for their sins. There's a lot of
that kind of ties into like Sisters of Battle. You know how they call them like miracles and whatnot, but it's really just warp energy from the Emperor.
Yeah, exactly. They just almost pretend it's not.
Right. It's almost that's kind of a cool.
You guys smell that?
Yeah. It's bullshit.
It feels like heresy.
I was like, oh shit, Tom's smelling stuff. That's a sign of poltergeist activity.
I was like, there's so many ways I could go with this right now.
I was like, I'm going to blow out my nose so I don't smell whatever it is he's smelling.
So examples of poltergeist activity in our real world are increasing activity. Something small happens, like a marble falling off a shelf, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. Small signs that lead to violent acts. You could be shoved. Furniture could be moved around. Your bed sheets could be torn off of you. Your bed could shake uncontrollably all night. Examples in Warhammer 40K would be psychers manifesting powers they don't understand and haven't learned to control yet. These are the type of psychers that pose the biggest amount of danger to the Imperium because they can become easy hosts for demons. You guys have any other examples in Warhammer 40K? I got a big one from the Dark Heresy book, but I need a second.
We haven't had one of these in a while because I haven't because you've
been lighting that candle.
No. What I've listened to. So the book I'm listening to, or the book I listened to, there was a.
We haven't had a Mark's book episode. It's been a while.
Yeah. This is what's Mark's listened to segment 34 in the Eye of Terror book, which is a great book. Honestly, like I really enjoyed it, and I don't
audiobook.
Yes, it goes unsaid, Tom. And
no, I'm gonna say it.
No. We all know I don't read. All right.
But he's really good with naps.
Terror, I believe the rogue trader that was in the protagonist, he was making deals with basically demons from the warp that were transformed into, or like looking like normal humans. They're humans that were mutated into demons, but they come out of the warp and they pretend to be humans, and they like kind of trick them to come back into the warp and make more demons and influence and whatnot. But they gave him something, I think it's called like a dream stone. And what you do is like you put it under your pillow and you basically think about something that you really want, and it becomes yours. But I think
like manifest.
Yeah, it manifests, and you basically get whatever you want. I think like the first thing he wanted was like a toy Space Marine. So when he woke up, there was like a toy Space Marine at like the foot of his bed. He's like, oh my God, it works. And so he's like, one of the instances, I think he had a nightmare is what happened. It was something along these lines. Don't quote me, but this is how things just play out in my brain. He had a nightmare about demons. And like there was like not a Lord of Change, but a Tzeentch demon basically like hiding, like in the way that the audiobook like was talking about it. It's like I'm in the corner, like looking at you, kind of. It was freaky. Like you have like a little bird shadow demon in the corner of your room, and it's like talking to you, and you're just like, what the fuck is that?
Oh wow!
And it like slowly creeps out of the shadows, and you're just like, what the fuck is that? Like
just
this
sitting
is
in the corner, like.
Yeah. Don't mind me. That's just as scary.
Take that blanket off.
Yeah. But
all he's part of the plan.
He's upset. But he was freaking out because he's dreaming about this demon, and when you wake up, whatever you were.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you were like, "Oh, put this under your pillow whenever your dream comes true." I'm like, "That's fucked."
Yeah,
like that could backfire real easy.
Yeah. That's a real 50-50.
Real fast.
So when he woke up, he was like freaking out because obviously you had a nightmare about demons. But I mean, it goes further than that. But it was just interesting, like the whole idea behind it.
That bridges the gap between poltergeist activity and demonic activity. And there's a lot of links between the two, which is I find super interesting. One of the cool things in the 40K universe that I can think of, and I'm sure you know this chart too, Kev, is there's Perils of the Warp charts in the Psychic Powers section of the Dark Heresy book.
And I love
just to give you guys a little bit of a flavor. Here's my absolute favorite one. It is called Bloody Tears. Blood weeps from stone and wood within 3d10 meters of the psyker. If there are any pictures of people or statues in the radius, they appear to be crying blood. That's very much like this idea that it's not actually a ghost. It's the person's awakening that's causing the problems. And I've always found that fascinating.
My favorite was like one of the first games I ever played was me and a buddy, and he had a psyker and he'd never used it before. And he's like, all right, cool. I'm going to fucking do a psychic thing.
Did he roll the 00?
Yeah. And he's
which,
like,
if I remember right, is the tear in space opens up.
So it was called
anybody.
Basically he perilled and he rolled it, and it basically was dragged into the warp.
Yeah. But then the tagline, if you read the whole tagline,
like the flavor text.
it ends with a burp.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
warp feast. A rift in reality is torn open and the psyker is sucked into the warp with a little burping noise.
Oh my
What's
god.
do they have dragged into the warp? Do they have that one?
Yeah, it says sucked, but dragged into the warp would be the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, no, it literally
So
he was
you have to do
first
real
time.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, you
He
have
was
to
like-
get that one. You have to roll
Yeah.
real bad.
No, it
But
was like first
I
time
just
doing a
love the burp
psychic
noise.
and being dragged into the warp now, and I'm like, like, because I was Tau, and I was like, this is why we don't fuck with that shit. Like,
That's what
You're
you
just like,
yeah,
got you, fucker.
Yeah. The bleeding eyes thing kind of reminded me of like an orc psychic power. It's called,
What do they got?
It's called jabbing fingers. But the flavor text is like the weird boy forces his attention on a nearby enemy before jabbing his own fingers into his eyes. the unfortunate
Any, like voodoos.
yeah,
them?
the unfortunate foe is in agonizing pain before finding themselves blinded temporarily.
That's
So
I
it's
love,
like
I love
he
how
blinds
orc warp
himself to-
powers. Orc warp powers are just somebody watching the fucking not the Little Rascals. What was the thing with the three guys, Mo Curly
Three
and
Stooges.
Three Stooges? It's fucking warp powers right there. So demonic
Oh,
activity
man.
is the next one. Demonic activity linked to poltergeist activity. So
skip
to
this.
specify,
that's that thing I fuck with, apparently.
Yeah, let's skip this one.
so while demons are definitely a Christian concept, the idea of devils or outsiders that can possess objects and even people is not solely the property of one religion, and it is not a new idea. It stretches back a long time. It's actually why Warhammer 40K uses daemon instead of demon. The word demon is based on the word daemon, and daemon just meant powerful outsider.
Damon.
And that's like Latin, right? Like Damon.
It's a Latin
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Predates Christianity by quite a bit.
Oh wow.
These demons can appear as apparitions or in dreams. You were just mentioning the dreamstone thing, so that links into that. Most of the time, they look demonic. Demons are often considered to be kind of the upper level of poltergeist activity. Demonic possession ramps up into violence incredibly quickly with
Yeah, this is the one
powerful
where, like-
physical manifestations very, very early.
Yeah, this is the
So-
one where like you have bruises on you, you have scratches.
So
Yeah.
with these, I mean, Christian or going back further into just traditional daemon, nonsense, is it because they're our demons are similar to warp entities where they're reflections of emotion and very passionate based? Or is there other kind of explanations for that?
So essentially, I think that's why Warhammer 40K borrows the word demon or daemon, is because they're looking at that like powerful outsiders. I think the emotional feast stuff is just it's just something in like kind of the cultural zeitgeist as far as fictional writing goes. A lot of times torture and fear are used by Lovecraftian style monsters and mythos, and the warp entities, the warp demons of 40K very much have a Lovecraftian. They're
gonna
not
say
necessarily
it's
trying to
that
kill
genre.
you. They're trying. Yeah, they're trying
to
like,
create fear.
eat your fear.
Yeah.
Oh, feed on
eaters.
your emotion kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, feed on your fear.
So
I kind of have a little bit of a story. It's more of a funny story than a scary story.
Okay.
But
okay.
so I had an old buddy, Jay, and he had a lot of like, what do you call it? Like supernatural experiences. I actually have a couple stories of him that he told me either like in my house or, things that he's experienced that are, I guess, scary stories, because I actually don't really have very many scary stories anymore. I think I shared them all with you.
Correct term is spooky dookies.
Spooky dookies. I don't have any more Nurgle nuggets for y'all.
This is where we're at.
This one's more of a funny one, but basically he was at his grandma's house. He's Hispanic, and his grandma has dolls like all along her walls.
I don't want to hear the rest of the story already. He's like, it's funny, not scary. There were dolls. I'm fucking out.
y'all Spanish got some scary shit in your houses all the time. Like
y'all got
crying
candles,
crying Mary, fucking dolls, like fucking
The little doll
tamales coming to life.
Tamales,
Chihuahuas. It's just
unwrapping
a
themselves.
fucking.
It's a hungry ass demon. I worked hard for those tamales, man. He's eating all my tamales. We
Get
actually
the
have
fuck
to make
out of this
some.
house. You don't pay rent. No.
We gotta make tamales.
Yeah,
like,
you
in
do.
a couple weeks.
For me.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, for us, right?
Yeah.
The wife's like, "Oh yeah, we're turning this into a workshop," and I'm like, "The fuck? What?
Yeah.
What do you mean workshop?" She's
Oh,
like, "Yeah,
dude.
we're making tamales here this year," and I'm like,
I'm
"Oh,
down.
man."
If she's referring to like while we're here, I am down. I've always wanted to learn how to make tamales.
Oh really?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
yeah. She's always up for
I
another pair of hands.
fucking love tamales. Dude.
Yeah. They're dope. She's making bacon wrapped jalapeno tamales.
Yeah, we got to do that.
No
We got to make
fucking
buffalo.
way.
We got
God.
to make buffalo chicken tamales.
That sounds interesting.
Oh my
I've
God.
never thought about cross-genreing tamales
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
other foods.
That's
but
what I'm saying. Barbecue pulled pork
I
tamales.
was about to say
I can't do
bulgogi
sweet.
beef.
No?
I can't do sweet because they have these tamales that are pink, but it's like that sugar added
Yeah.
to the batter, and they add
It's tinga,
pineapple and fucking other shit.
You're talking the
I can't eat those.
the
man.
leche tamales.
I don't
Those
know.
are my favorite.
No, but Tom, right as you said barbecue pulled pork, I was thinking bulgogi beef.
Bulgogi beef tamales,
That'd be-
like
Never had it.
onion
Spicy,
ring,
dude, spicy pork belly
onion
tamales.
ring
That sounds
tamales.
good. Oh God, fucking
Chicharron
yeah,
tamales.
dude. Oh fuck, that was good.
Think about it, bro.
That's
This
four
episode
over
on
here in
UHM.
Dude, this I can
Kitchen.
tell we're all a bunch of fat fucks. Like it's just we're like fucking bacon tamales.
Fucking at me, bro. What's up? Go
That's
ahead, Mark, with your
legitimately how it really
your
is there.
fucking tamale ghosts or
All
whatever.
right. Tamale ghost. So my buddy Jay, he had his little nephew staying with him at his grandma's house. And it was like really dark. They were watching like a movie late at night, and they heard something in their grandma's room. Their Gma, their granny, I forgot. I think he called her Gma. His nephew, he was telling his nephew like, oh hey, go check on Gma. Like I heard something in her room, and he's just like, oh okay, I'm gonna make sure she's okay. It's nighttime. It's all dark. His nephew goes and scatters off, and he's just like, oh man, he's kind of taking a little bit. So he like goes and walks up. And like he sees his nephew kind of like creeping in the hallway. I guess he's trying not to wake up his grandma. He sees his nephew open the door, and he like kind of he's behind his nephew. He's trying to fuck with him basically. He's trying to scare him.
Yeah.
He sees his grandma like as he opens the door. He sees his grandma just sit straight up, boom, and she like points at one of the dolls on the wall, and she's like El Diablo. And his nephew's like, oh, and turns around, and my buddy Jay is standing right behind him. He sees my buddy Jay, and he's just like, oh, and fucking pisses himself.
That's when you nope the fuck out of that house.
Just instantly, he's like,
Nope the fuck out of that house as fast as you can, man.
Hey, I have to say, as somebody who got scared and then retaliated by peeing on the goose, I get it.
You're like, I pick up what you put down.
Established dominance.
I know.
Established
I know my buddy,
dominance. Established dominance.
His grandpa or his great uncle, like his grandpa's brother, was in bed, like in the hospital, dying. Like he's on his last legs, hasn't moved, all this stuff. Like he's crippled, like gets up out of bed and starts fighting something in the air.
What the fuck?
Saying not yet. And he's like swinging and fucking punching and stuff like that. And then they wrestle him back into bed. And then somebody like in the family arrives, right? And then right after that person arrived, he passed. Yeah. And they were like, what the fuck? And the person who had gotten there said that he told them like, oh, they tried to take me, but I've fought him off long enough to see you. Right. So I was like, damn, that dude's a badass. He just knocked out Death. Death's like, I'm here. He's like, fuck, no, you're not. I didn't hear no bell. Exactly. Like,
dude, that's no.
Yeah. Apparently that, and like, that was the thing. Like that actually like full blown happened. Like
That is a hard motherfucker.
Right. That's what I said. I was like, homeboy just socks Death. He's all fuck you.
Right in the kisser.
God damn.
Fuck up out of here. Fuck up out of here
Like,
with your bony ass
coming
finger.
back tomorrow, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. Like you hear stuff like that, and it kind of makes you like, oh fuck, like death and ghosts and afterlife, and you're just like, fuck.
I remember it's not
there
exactly
ain't nothing,
the same.
man. You just rot in the ground.
I just remember when I think it was my grandma was getting pretty close to the end there. She was like, oh yeah, they're coming to take me away.
Oh god.
Right.
And we're all like,
I don't mean to laugh. That's just fucking weird. Like your fucking voice of that was terrifying.
yeah.
I'm not laughing at your grandma dying. But the way
Kevin's
you
grandma's
died,
voice.
I get it.
Yeah, Kevin's grandma's voice is too real.
Grandma's voice. I was like, oh fuck. Like,
Want some cookies?
Oh god, dude. Okay, stop.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
well,
Please stop.
Granny got some cookies for you. Have any hard candies?
Like fucking fly to the backers.
I left mine.
So
Where's original?
to wrap up the last here on demonic activity, Because I think you guys are starting to bring up some examples of intelligent or interactive activity.
Yeah.
Demonic entities are usually attempting to use paranormal activity in order to like break down your psychic walls, to break down your mental faculties, because what they're trying to do is they want to possess you. Examples of this look no further than Hollywood, the large
Constantine
amount of exorcism films that exist. Exorcism films all deal with demonic possession. And yeah, again, you were bringing up, it's weird that, or you had said, hey, Catholics or Christian people don't believe in ghosts, but Christian people believe that people can be possessed. And they've, unfortunately in the last 20, 30 years have killed several people in the pursuit of exorcisms. So it's just one of those.
Shit.
I was more speaking ignorantly than anything. I was saying that like a lot of religions don't believe in ghosts, right? Like as a because they say like, you die and you wait for paradise is, I'm assuming how a decent amount of
die, go to heaven, die, go hell kind of thing.
Right. Not die, stay here, you're a ghost now. Yeah. Kind of situation.
Well, and a lot of times they'll use examples like, oh, she lived a good life, she's now an angel looking over the family, or oh, he was a disastrous person. He was a vile presence on the stain of our country. He's now a demon who, in fact, and it's like, okay, so what's the difference? She made cookies and he didn't support your political figure. Wait, what? No.
I've never liked that thought where it's like, oh, they're looking down on me. I was like, God, I hope not.
Do you know what I do?
God, I hope not. I hope not right now.
Gmod, don't look at me.
Hands are getting real free. So examples in 40K.
Grandma's ghost come down and goes, I'm never going to be a great grandma if you keep doing it yourself.
Not into my dish towel.
So examples in 40K are any time that a lesser demon or a neverborn
pick it up
attempts
and it's straight.
I cut my hand on a dish towel.
Oh my God. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off the subject. Mark's like, nah, we got to keep talking about the wank towel.
My lonely towel.
Lesser psychers who don't have.
Oh, God.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Done. This is now an episode about wanking. So
I'm an expert.
We haven't started talking about weapons and tech in 40K. Keep the wank territory. Wank-o-matic 45. That's in every guardsman.
We know you got that master blaster in your pants.
Is that a weapon? There's a fucking space radio blazer. just baiting it.
Dude, like the head like rotates into different weapons and shit.
Oh my God. Dude, Jesus Christ. All right. So to refocus us, examples of demonic possession in Warhammer 40K would be anytime a lesser demon attempts to possess anybody with even a tiny bit of psychic power. Think of like the lesser Nurgle demons might possess a guardsman and turn him into a plague zombie or something like that. Obviously, it can go all the way up. The Eisenhorn and Ravener books deal with demon hosts. Demon hosts are a specific type of,
or something like that.
Cherubal.
Yeah. Is it cherubal? Dude, it has like 5 extra vowels in there.
Yeah.
Because
it's demon. His name's not supposed to be like.
Oh yeah, you can't actually say his name.
You're not supposed to really be able to say it.
Yeah, his real name's like.
Well, and one of the books, one of the like chaos sorcerers, one of the not powerful enough chaos sorcerers in like a cult in the underhive is learning how to speak demonic things, and they talk about like he tries to say the word and his molars explode in his mouth.
Oh, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, it's physically damaging.
They're like, oh, his name, and it's like, yeah, and then everybody just goes deaf.
What the fuck?
Yeah, remember the same guy. So it's like seeing an angel summon the things into his hand.
Yeah,
it's the same guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So last night, since we're talking about the same, I don't know if you remember it because you're bringing up the books, but it's the same guy. He uses what it was called like the words of ancient power or whatever is what he called them.
Yeah.
But he could like summon like weapons into his hand from his pocket. Yeah, and so it's the same guy.
That's gnarly.
But yeah, that also happens. Things like that.
I think that's in the Arbites like series. There's a series of Arbites novels that take place in an underhive. I'm pretty sure that's also from there. Or at least I'm sure the characters in a bunch of places. Yeah.
Oh, it could be a same character used. Yeah.
Intelligent or interactive activity. This is the most experienced and most widely accepted form of haunting. It is also the most traditional. This is an intelligent haunting, and it is accepted that the soul or ghost of the person who passed is somehow still bound to our living world. Often this ghost retains a connection to who they were and might have a reason for still being around, some sort of unfinished business. Examples of this are all the traditional stuff: slamming doors, cold spots that you encounter while walking around, windows opening and closing, knocking in response to intelligent questions. Examples in 40K. Examples in 40K would be how the Eldari deal with spirit stones and wraith constructs, in my mind. This could also be fighting something off. Like you guys had brought up fighting something off just before death, or mentioning that I know my time has come would be other examples of kind of
almost like
interaction in real
like Legion
world.
of the Damned, like unfinished business, Space Marines kind of thing.
Yeah.
I fucking love Legion of the Damned.
Yeah,
I
they're
love
so
them
cool, dude.
much.
We're going to get into another thing that's going to make the hair on everybody's neck stand up. And like writing these notes, I legitimately had to get up and leave twice writing this section, and it's not that long. These are shadow people or shadow creature activity. I said it, and all of the hair on my body is standing up. Like it's under my beanie, but like everything. There isn't a lot of connection between this form of paranormal activity and the others. So it kind of gets lumped in with ghost stuff because they don't know where to put it. While most of the stuff that we've talked about so far has kind of been more in the ghost world, this is where we're starting to bridge that gap between, are we talking about something from the spirit world, or are we talking about an actual cryptid? We've already talked about a very specific famous type of shadow people. In some of our earlier episodes, Tom has a shadow person or shadow creature experience. They're normally seen as shapeless, dark masses that are roughly human sized, most commonly caught out of the corner of your eye. They move from wall to wall, seeming to blink or even skip to new locations. They usually lack any normal human features. They may not even have any visible features. However, in some cases, they do appear to be in large hats, cloaks, or other roughly Victorian to early modern, so 1930s shadow clothing. There are connections to this. There are connections to this and the cryptids known as Black-Eyed Kids and the Men in Black.
Oh, fuck that.
Now, Men in Black and Black-Eyed Kids, even though they've been popularized in movies as being kind of helpful, are not. Men in Black show up in really weird circumstances, and they have for a while. It's actually why the movies Men in Black, the characters dress a certain way. I definitely want to get into Men in Black and Black-Eyed Kids when we're talking about cryptids.
Yeah, I don't know much about them.
Shit.
Men in Black also, in relation to the movie, that is a term also just used to describe Fed boys in general.
Yeah.
Right. The reason that the Men in Black cryptid is called a Men in Black is because they usually look like G-men.
Okay,
G-men
that makes sense.
Government men.
Blah, blah,
those
blah,
who
Mr. Freeman.
Right. Those who encounter these sorts more directly are often filled with an immediate sense of dread and are threatened by these creatures directly. They can appear to be made out of condensed smoke or mist when they're actually viewed directly. They have a tendency to hop, skip, or blink when they move. Or if they're seen from a distance, they kind of seem to float along as if they're on roller skates or bound to like a train track. The classic examples are the Hat Man. This is often a fedora or cavalier's hat. Cloaked and hooded figures, shadow dogs, and shadow cats. What was your... You had something for us.
I had a stupid thought, but I'm going to share it anyway because this is what I do.
Hey, just one?
Just one. What if like people like, because you were saying how like people see shadow people and they have an instant like, oh shit, like what is that? Like fear of it. What if that stems from like cavemen
actually
first discovering fire,
actually being afraid of the dark?
Well,
yeah.
I've been kind of thinking about that same thing. That I remember reading this tidbit or something. Humans have an innate reaction to anything that looks human but isn't.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. I've heard
the
that.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
Shadow people is a part of it.
And somebody kind of was like breaking it down that it most likely stems from the kind of like war between the two humanoid
species. The Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal.
Yeah. And then moving on to Homo sapien versus Neanderthal is because technically they weren't the same human as us.
Right. Yeah.
And our like genetic like perseverance would be like, that's not us. We need to survive, and they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I don't like monkeys.
It's
Yeah, exactly.
It's the reason.
It's because terrifying.
It's the
Go ahead,
reason
Ryan.
people are having problems with robots, especially as robots kind of approach. The classic example that's fucking
humanoid.
with people a lot right now is sex robots. And people are either certain personalities are really attracted to sex robots because I can use this as a toy, and that's just how they see humanity. And then there are other people who are incredibly freaked out by them because they don't quite look real, but they're right fucking there. It's also the explanation
it's pretty
for like
freaky, dude.
why we're afraid of skinwalkers and wendigos and stuff like that. We'll actually get into that here in a second. The uncanny valley is definitely something we should cover in a future episode.
Yeah, and that was just something that fascinated. I'm glad you brought it up too, because like I was like thinking it, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I share my stupid thoughts, and sometimes they're not stupid.
No,
so,
it wasn't a stupid thought at all.
Sometimes,
Mark, there are no stupid thoughts, only stupid people.
So
His brain's not smooth the whole way around.
Yeah,
there's at least one little
crevice. There's a couple wrinkles on the back end.
We found a wrinkle.
Because he can't use it. It's because he can't use green stuff, so it's less. No.
And that wrinkles is about to smooth out because I was going to share something else. So I just watched The Croods with my daughter.
Okay.
The first and second one. The first one's about cave people.
Yeah.
And the second one is well, I guess the first one is about it too. But
they meet the first they meet Homo sapien.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's like, I'm a free thinker.
He's like, I think, and they're like, think.
Yeah. What the fuck is that? Right. And like the guy that Nicolas Cage, dude, he's so great, dude.
That movie is
so
actually pretty good.
It's so hilarious. He's like, yeah, and I got this thing in the back of my mind, and it's like he's like, it's like hair, but I call
the
it
first
rug.
idea he has.
Yeah. It's a mobile home. It's a bunch of rocks. Like, it just kind of reminded when Kevin talked about it. Reminded me of that. But like, there was a fight between them, like because they're like, "Oh, you're cave people. We're not cave. We're not. We're different than you are." Yeah.
And remember, because in the beginning they're like, "He's not like us."
Exactly.
Because obviously both sides would have had that same kind of reaction.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
And there was, as science has boiled down, there was interaction between the two that wasn't overtly hostile, but and then even there was some crossbreeding.
Right.
But
we are a mix. Homo sapiens are a mix.
Yeah, we're kind of like the best bits of everything left over.
That's not like us. Those are cavemen. They got big old brows. They're all hairy as fuck. And the other guy in the back's like, I'm gonna fuck one though.
In the fucking second one, they're in like a steamy room, and the guy's like, "Hey, you could take off your fur." He's like, "I did." It's like his chest.
That's what I'm saying. Like these first people, that one's like, check out that hairy bitch.
There's examples of that in modern genetics. As an example, my wisdom teeth grew in fine, which is actually a genetic marker that I have like more ancient DNA, essentially. It doesn't happen in a lot of people. It happens a lot in people with mixed native blood. I'm somebody with mixed native blood, but I have an older strain, which allowed me to keep my wisdom teeth.
Yeah, I have the same. I never had my wisdom teeth messed with. And also red hair has been linked more towards Neanderthal genetics than other colors of hair.
So
yeah, in fact, blonde hair is the weird genetic mutation that may in fact die out.
So some
people always say that gingers are going to die out, but yeah.
It's because ginger has that weird recessive where it can go away for a while and then suddenly it's like a fucking ginger kid pops out. You're like, who the fuck are you?
Kevin, your people are going to die out apparently, dude.
So,
what the
nah.
He said,
that's what they've been saying.
That's crazy.
There's been an argument, genetically speaking, that at a certain point gingers would die out. It was pretty big, like mid 2000s. They actually did further research into the concept and found out that it's actually more likely that blondes would die out. That blonde hair and blue eyes would cease being a genetic, just
because it's
it's a very specific genetic mutation.
Yeah.
And they're
very,
both
very specific
super
genetic
recessive.
mutation.
Right. Well, I can only imagine green eyes,
Oh yeah. But so what ended up happening is the recessiveness of redheads.
Yeah.
Well, and it basically ends up that no matter what, there's always going to be a certain kind of like percentage
of redheads,
because the pattern will repeat itself enough times to maintain a certain amount.
It's not a primary gene that, like brown eyes or something.
Yeah. It gets overridden by other things, but if two people the recessive part's still in you.
In the background.
So like my kids might, there's a chance they'll come out with red hair. There's a chance they won't come out with red hair.
Right.
But that
as long as Summer has red hair in her family, right?
At some point, if Summer has red hair, but she has blonde, which is more recessive than red.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what he's saying. So blondes are more likely to die out.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
It turns out. So there's like a weird.
My dad has blonde hair.
Yeah, and then do you have fucking not even blonde hair on
dude?
your
I
head?
don't look anything like my dad.
Both my grandparents had, I think, blue eyes. My dad had blue eyes. My mom has brown eyes, and I've got like the weird like hazel where it's not quite green, it's not quite brown.
And that's the weird thing that happens. There's the mixing, which is kind of like odd. You'd think it would either come out as one set of genetics or the other, but then there's sometimes
some mixing.
Yeah. Anyway, examples in Warhammer 40K of shadow people would be lesser demons. I specifically came to my mind when they talk in the books about the Geller fields starting to like fail, and there's like the demons can't quite manifest, but they're starting to like kind of push through Geller fields, and they can make like they can step in and make one like attack,
Smells
and then they go to make their second attack, and they kind of dissolve into mist or whatever.
So there's this book I'm listening to, segment 35. They're talking about how Death Watch are fighting some demons. I can get into why they're fighting demons. It was kind of cool the way they explained it, because after they were Slaanesh demons, after they were done fighting them, they're like, oh, it smells of
like sulfur,
piss and tang.
Yeah.
So it smells like
an orgy.
They said it smells like ammonia and tang. Is what they said. Yeah. So it smells like
like metal.
It's like orange. Yeah, it smells like orange piss.
Yeah. Tang, like if you've ever
no, just like the tanginess. Like, well, I guess blood kind of has a tangy smell, right?
Yeah, I always think whenever they describe like the tang smell of warp, I always imagine it to be like ion ozone metal.
Like
mixed with sulfur. What they're alluding to is sulfur and brimstone. And if you've ever smelled both of those things, brimstone has a very, very irony, like ozone splitting smell to it. It smells like cordite. It smells like somebody just fucking peeled off an entire mag or two right next to you. And then sulfur smells like rotten egg. And
but they didn't say sulfur. They said ammonia.
It said ammonia instead of
ammonia smells like rotten egg.
No.
If you ever smell like really sulfury like water, it smells like cat piss and rotten eggs.
Yeah, ammonia is more cat piss smell, and sulfur is rotten eggs.
Yeah.
So, but tang is what the astronauts drink.
Tang was invented by NASA.
I was thinking that too.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I was literally thinking of fucking Mallory Archer walking around the space station. I can't find any alcohol, but I found this. I couldn't find anything to drink, like any rum or whatever. But I found that if you mix isopropyl
alcohol and tang.
Isopropyl alcohol and tang. It tastes pretty good.
Oh my god!
I fucking love tang, dude.
I do
Tang's
too,
pretty
man.
dope. But yeah, it was invented.
I grew up on tang.
Vitamin C helps prevent altitude sickness.
Oh, okay.
So bonus for astronauts. Because that's about as altitude as you can get.
Yeah, no joke.
Oh yeah.
You're so much altitude. There's no altitude.
It's so altitude that it's just negative altitude.
It's about as much altitude as you can get.
As much altitude you can get.
So the last type of traditional haunting are called portal or dimensional hauntings. And although the idea isn't really new, this concept, it's coming kind of back into vogue and back into fashion. So this entire idea is that our reality, our dimension isn't the only dimension, that there's actually a multitude of dimensions that kind of cross each other or stack on each other. And there are
it's called the multiverse.
And there are parts of these dimensions that rub against each other or even break against each other. And that's where the idea of the portal or a doorway kind of existing between the two of them. And this is being used currently to explain a lot of paranormal activity. The reason that people see aliens, the paranormal activity reported at Skinwalker Ranch, all sorts of other paranormal oddities are kind of being linked to this idea that it's actually just a doorway that's opened between our world and the next world. A very classic example of this would be the type of haunting where you see something very simple twice. The cat in the Matrix, when Neo goes deja vu and they all kind of flip out. Yep. It can also be an explanation for why an item goes missing, only to turn up in like a locked cabinet or a safe later. Another thing that we can probably do entire...
That's the one I have experience with. I don't have all the spooky stuff, but I have like
fall.
Yeah. Weird shit. Like I put it here and it's over there now. Like things like that.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Another explanation the Goblin universe, the hologram universe, which we could dig into in another entire Lorus Obscurus episode.
Is the Goblin universe like the Borrowers?
That's where all your other
No, the
socks
Goblin. Yes. Yeah. Actually, the Goblin universe is an explanation for why weird shit happens, where like you'll lose something for months at a time and then it'll appear.
and then it comes back.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So examples of this, just real quick before we get into personal experiences and then anything that we could come up with in the 40K world, are strange animals that appear almost like their earthly brethren, alien sightings, things vanishing, noticeable deja vu. You got an experience with this, Mark? It sounds like something along this level.
Nah, it was more of just like in Constantine, the movie with John Wick.
That movie was actually really cool. I thought it was pretty cool.
Keanu Reeves.
I fucking love that movie. Yeah.
Did you say you'd fuck Keanu Reeves?
No. I said I fucking love that movie. I almost said that.
I'd fuck Keanu Reeves. I was like, what?
Just fucking straight up statement.
Wow.
I'd fuck that man. No, but like when him and Shia LaBeouf, they're doing the exorcism and they bring like a mirror to send the demon that's possessing them to another dimension.
Oh, that half head motherfucker.
Yeah. It was like a lesser demon,
They
but
trap it.
yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. Like alternate dimension, you're trapping them back. Like it was a cool like idea behind it.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's been repeated in some other things where you can like trap a demon in a mirror and then you shatter the mirror to send it back to its realm or something.
Yeah. So the wife actually told me something. The wife
That's
actually told me something.
Stereotypical Catholic thing.
The wife.
Your wife told you?
Told me something really creepy that kind of just stuck with me because again, I don't fuck with demons like Tom.
Fuck.
Tom's all like serenading.
Big titty demon
serenading
Fuck
him.
big titty demon girls like Tom. That's what you want to say.
I mean, I guess that'd probably be the big trap for me, right? But what my wife said, because we have a lot of mirrors in our house, she was saying, yeah, I don't like mirrors. And I'm like, why? They're there to make the room look bigger. Like that's the whole idea behind like a lot of mirrors in a house. They make the house look bigger. And she was telling me, yeah, but you know, my grandma always told me that if you wake up staring at a mirror, a demon will take your place because your soul gets.
That's the like reflection.
The idea.
Yeah, it can get trapped.
The transference.
Right. It gives. It's like Dragon Ball Z with Captain Ginyu.
Oh yeah,
fucking
Demon's just waiting in the mirror, and he's like, "You wait, you sit up." He's all, "Gotcha, bitch, you're mine."
So,
but yeah, that's essentially what she was telling me. She's like, "Yeah, you know, if you wake up looking at a mirror, then you know it's easier.
you get stuck there forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's the whole
and I
idea
was
of
like,
somebody
fuck
taking a
that shit.
picture of you and somebody
taking
taking your
your soul.
picture,
kind of thing. Yeah.
stealing your soul. Examples in the 40K universe for portal or dimensional hauntings would be essentially everything in the warp. I can't think of anything other than just literally the warp exists is a good example. I don't know if you guys have anything specific.
Because the warp is almost actively trying to seep into reality in Warhammer,
Constantly.
which is essentially a galaxy-sized portal at that point. It's wherever it's coming through is the portal.
Actively trying to penetrate you with lemon juice.
The two big actual the two big actual portals would be the Maelstrom and then obviously the Eye of Terror.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of just interesting tidbit. It's almost the other way when ships go into the warp. Like when
they have
the
to
Navy ships
themselves.
they essentially are pulling the reverse. Like, ha, we're coming into you now.
I've said that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right, we had a story, Ryan.
Yeah, so we got a bit of a treat for you guys today. We have our very first listener ghost story. So just like the listener lore that we read off in our Tales from the Hive episodes, we want to hear your real spooky experiences. We want to hear your creepypastas. We want to hear the stuff that you guys have seen and witnessed because we love doing Lorus Obscurus. We hope you guys love hearing Lorus Obscurus. To give you guys a little bit of background before we jump into the story, me and my siblings grew up in and around Navy housing and on Navy bases. Lots of different cultures mixing up, lots of different perspectives, and a lot of incredibly old buildings. And when I say old buildings, I don't mean the joke that Americans have. We're like, oh, this business has been here for 20 years. It's ancient. I mean, like these are buildings in cases that stretched back to colonial times, old military forts, old military bastions, stuff that would have seen service or may have even been owned by the British before America became America. During a lot of this time, we spent our childhood poking around old buildings, poking around and doing urban exploring before urban exploring had really become a thing. Lots of amateur ghost hunting, lots of just what experience can we get digging through old crap. So this experience that we have now, this experience that we're going to read today, was sent in to us by my little sister. And she is recounting a ghostly experience that she had in one of these circumstances. This is The Haunted Lighthouse by my little sister. When I was 10, I was living on a Navy base in Pensacola, Florida. There was an old lighthouse on the base, and we were family friends with the current lighthouse keepers. It was a big, beautiful lighthouse in a very traditional Gregorian style. The lighthouse sat on top of a hill surrounded by a bunch of old, gnarly trees that were covered in Spanish moss, just dripping down and forming amazing canopies. There was a little dirt path winding up the hill that led to a dirt parking lot. The top of the lighthouse was painted black, but 2/3 of the way down, it switched to white. It's very classic lighthouse. I know the one she's talking about. I never went into it, but if you think of that like New England lighthouse style, it's very, very classic. There was an attached living quarters that was in a traditional style of a 2-story Gregorian house with a porch on both the top and the bottom level. The lighthouse keeper invited my older brother, not me. I'm the oldest. This would be my little brother. I didn't live with the family anymore when this happened, and me to ghost hunt that. They invited us to a ghost hunt that was being done by a professional ghost hunter group. This was our second or third time going into the lighthouse after dark because we were the type of kids that wanted to go into all sorts of old buildings at night. On this occasion, my brother and I got to hang out with the staff where the office people were celebrating a birthday. We got slices of cake before the actual ghost hunters arrived. We were enjoying cake with the staff as they recounted all their ghost experiences and the various history of ghost hauntings that happened at the lighthouse. The room was full with people, lights, and cheap birthday decorations. We were feeling comfortable and excited to explore the lighthouse at night. Later that evening, after the ghost hunting film crew arrived, my brother and I joined them in the main lighthouse. We helped bring in and set up most of the equipment for the ghost hunters. All the lights were then turned off, and then the lighthouse staff bid us good night, locking us in. I was feeling particularly confident that night, so I went out on my own to explore. I wanted to go all the way up the spiral iron stairwell to the top where the spinning beacon light was. I was too scared to go up the last few times I had been here. It was completely dark on the stairs, with no light except for one small window midway to the top that allowed some moonlight to shine down to the base where I was currently standing. The iron handrail had a lace-like pattern that let enough light through that created these beautiful yet eerie patterns on the floor and walls. Looking up, I was determined this would be the time I made it to the top. I slowly and carefully started up the stairs, and about 10 feet up, I became incredibly disoriented. It was a deep, dark, confined space with flecks of small light that created a spiraling motion went up and through it. I closed my eyes for a few seconds to make the spinning stop and felt my way up the stairwell. I was proud that I was making my way one step at a time, but I couldn't shake the feeling that somebody was watching. It felt like a presence encouraging me to keep going. I opened my eyes every few feet, but I would again get dizzy, and I couldn't keep them open for long. I tripped and fell a few times when trying to orient myself, but I did eventually make it to the top. There was a small iron walkway, one side which led to the beacon and the other which led to a small room. The room had nothing more than a desk and a chair. There was a small window that allowed moonlight to flood in. I was a bit out of breath, and I thought it would be polite to say good evening to the ghost of the lighthouse keeper, who was said to still roam this portion of the lighthouse. Now it was time for me to head back down the stairs and join the others. I began going down, but it seemed even worse than when I had been trying to climb. I was now looking through black iron work in the darkness instead of heading toward light, as I had been when I was going up. I felt a terrible dread descending the stairs. It was dead silent as I started down the first steps. As I continued my slow descent, I was aware I was slipping farther and farther into the darkness. Each step echoed around the brick walls, and I felt a mounting chill. I continued to feel my way down slowly. My fear was rising, my heart was beating rapidly, and I was struggling to breathe. My feet moved slowly down the stairs. My foot slipped, and I felt myself falling backwards. My body tensed, and my heart was in my throat as I grasped desperately for the handrails. I took a couple of deep breaths as I realized I wasn't going to die this time. Continuing down, I saw the last stretch and decided it was time to bolt it to safety. I made it there and back again. With the adrenaline still pumping, I focused on trying to calm myself down and wandered into the lower level, which contained a lighthouse museum. I was looking at all the old photos of people who used to live in the lighthouse over the ages. That's when I heard the giggle. I spun around, expecting to see one of the ghost hunters or my brother, but there was no one there. Looking for who had made the sound, I went to the hallway door and still couldn't see anybody. I went to the other door leading to the next room. No one again. It must be all in my head, I thought. I was still a bit shaken from almost falling down the spiral stairwell. I returned to the museum case when I felt a hand tap me on the shoulder. I shrieked and jumped at least 1 foot in the air. I quickly spun around to see a small dark shadow dash away from me and head down the hallway. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps rushing towards me from the opposite direction. I backed away towards the corner, but before I could get there, I nearly jumped out of my skin. I saw a pale face pop into the doorway from the adjacent room. Then I realized the face belonged to my brother, who was looking at me with concern. He asked if I was okay. I told him what happened, and the rest of the night, I did not leave his side. That is her ghost experience.
That's a spooky dookie.
Lighthouses really aren't that big.
Yeah.
So the fact that
they're not.
No one was around when like she was alone in a place filled with people is just kind of crazy.
That is crazy. The way that she describes things is very immersive. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really dig it. That when I feel like I am there myself in the story, it is nice.
The imagery of the ironwork,
the dirt
crisscrossing, the lines and the like strips,
everything. Even just like talking about like the dirt road that leads up to the dirt lot with the house, of old Gregorian like artistic style, and you got the deck on top and the deck on the bottom. And you're going into the lighthouse, and as you're descending or as you're rising through the lighthouse, it was really good. It was it is captivating, I think is the word I'm looking for.
It's short and sweet and creepy. There's not a lot of
extra
explanations to what's trying to go on, or a lot of like, I was thinking of this, or I was thinking of that. It was weird. It was weird feeling that whole like, because we've all gone upstairs or downstairs in the pitch dark and feeling that like I can't tell what I'm doing feeling.
Oh yeah. It's not great.
Nah.
All right, guys. So to bring us all into a close, we are going to talk about our last of the Chaos Gods. We're looking at She Who Thirsts, the Doom of the Eldari, the Dark Prince himself, Slaanesh. So a lot of the jokes and memes around Slaanesh always go toward the lusty, sexy, perverted side. And I think that's all part of it. But it is important to remember that it's all things in excess. So this could be eating yourself to death. This could be painting yourself to death. This could be just trying to be the best woodworker there is until you don't have fingers anymore and you're literally fucking sanding wood with your fucking
bones. They're nubs.
Wrist bones. Excess, the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect of excess is always the easiest to go to. And it's a lot of what, Slaanesh falls under.
It's the motley crew of demons.
Yeah, no shit, right? It's if you were to break it down into like a D&D perspective, sex, drugs, and rock and roll are definitely Slaanesh's domains. The Slaanesh's whisperings toward vanity and the pursuit of perfection and many of the Emperor's children led to Lucius the Eternal's current state, just as wielding the demon blade of Slaanesh eventually led to Fulgrim being weakened and then entrapped in his own body while a demon prince possessed the Primarch. And then, of course, you brought up the Remembrancer, who invented essentially the sounds, which became the weapons of the Noise Marines.
Is that what it is?
Yep. So there was a Remembrancer that wrote a symphony, and she had like experimented with a bunch of different, like essentially quasi heavy metal, crazy sounds that the Imperium hadn't heard to give a concert for Fulgrim. And as the concert started, or a concert in Fulgrim's honor, and as the concert started, everybody was enraptured and entrapped, and it was just these amazing sounds nobody had heard. But as it continued to go on, like people's fucking heads exploded and Marines turned on Marines and started fighting. And the Space Marines
straight up
realized,
right?
Yeah. The Space Marines realized that if the instruments stopped playing, everybody was it was going to end in carnage. But a lot of the people who had been playing the instruments had turned into demonettes along with the composer, and were like wading through the audience, murdering shit. So they ran up on, Space Marines being quasi loyalists, Space Marines still, they hadn't quite fallen all the way yet.
Pretending
they ran up
to
on
be loyalists.
Stage. Yeah. being loyalists to the idea of the Imperium under Horus. This is that moment where
that gray area.
Yeah.
Oh, where they're like, Horus isn't a demon. He's just a different Imperium.
It's Renegade. It's Renegade.
Yeah, it's Renegade. It's that 15 minutes of Renegade stuff that happens
exactly.
in Warhammer. But they ran up on stage and tried to start playing the instruments, and that's when they realized that the instruments could be wielded as weapons, because they were
cool.
too inept to play them, but they were skilled enough to basically like use them as guns. So that's where Noise Marines come from. That's the origin.
That's
of Noise
cool.
Marines.
That's really cool. Do they ever describe like how the sounds sound?
Nobody hears it and lives.
Really?
Yeah, I imagine they probably do somewhere. There's a sequence in I can't, maybe it's the Fulgrim book. It's one of the last Horus Heresy books I actually read all the way through. They talk about like Fulgrim starting to paint with blood and like feces because he's trying to like capture the essence of who he's painting. And of course, you know, if you're going to fucking rip somebody's guts out to use their viscera as painting material, they die. And there was a lot of that like weird stuff that happens in that book. I imagine at some point they described the sound, but I think Kevin hits the nail on the head. Our ears can't hear it.
Yeah.
Like it's something you'd hear in your soul probably more than
in your ears.
Yeah.
I see what
it was something that like ripped the psychic soul out of the body and plunged it into.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
It's like some fucking
like some tinnitus bullshit.
Some old one, like fucking push your soul out of your body kind of thing.
Push it out your
I don't know why.
Yeah, right?
I don't know why, but now I'm thinking of fucking Dory trying to talk to whales and finding Nemo.
That's how it sounds.
Like.
That's what Noise Marines sound like. They sound like Dory speaking whale.
We've got another denizen of the underhive that we wanted to bring to your guys' attention as we've been.
Is this Naked Kevin?
Different. This is not Naked Kevin. As we've been developing these stories, we've always been using something in the underhive. We've got Tom's location down in the sump that we'll flesh out a little bit more in a Hive lore episode or in a Hive lore drop here in the future. We've got
the titty twister.
The titty twister.
Yep. We've got Kevin's blood and enraged ball player or gladiatorial fighter who's may or may not be
still pounding people's fists into the ground.
He's an echo, man.
Yeah, the echo man.
Yeah. You just hear thumping in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
We have Katarina, the Tzeentch sorceress, who used to be a servitor, but unlocked knowledge she wasn't supposed to get to. And lastly, I'm going to introduce one of the electro pop stars of the underhive, Zygonia. Zygonia had grown up in the spires of Innsmouth, the rich heiress to their family's off-world water empire. Generations growing water soft and then thrown fat on selling ice rights to void ships. They had experienced all the advantages of a young, beautiful daughter of nobility. The finest clothes, the finest education, and the best social standing money could buy. But it had never felt quite right, never had their interests aligned with father's wishes, nor did they possess mother's sharp wit, analytical brain for numbers, and the desire towards business sparring. As they sat studying their reflection cast back from the floor-to-ceiling mirror, which mother had found and installed for their Sweet 16, positioned just behind an antique vanity, which claimed to be made of old Terran wood. The large Fenrisian oak double doors to their back. Their reflection was that of a classical feminine beauty, even by the highest of imperial standards. Soft features, sharp in all the right places, pout of the lips, a lengthening of the neck, with a slender shape that blurred the line between late adolescence and adulthood. Perfectly proportioned to be wrapped in synth leather, either tight across the chest to hide their mother's bloodline's modest gift, or tight just under the bust to enhance the same. While the attention of Spire boys and Spire girls would always hold its appeal, it was the shock and outrage toward their fashion that they found could be savored longest. The vanity and mirror were strewn with flyers, wristbands, and various bits of fandom that always seemed to collect at the edge of a live music fan's life. From the off-world synth pop that was popular up in the spires to the alt electro death scene popular in the mid-hives, something father barely tolerated or approved of. A call came from the hall, and Zygonia glanced away from the mirror over their shoulder. Their reflection, however, paused, seeming to study the long curve of their own neck, just a second too long. A slight sardonic smirk flashing across before it obeyed the laws of light and physics and matched its owner's pose once again. Traditional schooling in the glorious history of the Imperium, business matters and mathematics had always come easy. But it was truly the feminine arts that interested them the most, singing in particular. First, the classical strength and melody of a delicate and alluring throat. But as their tastes grew, they were drawn to the savage intensity of electro-death, sump punk, and synthcore. Sounds that mixed the throbbing, bleeding forms of melodious respites into the guttural growls of intense vocal action and even violence. Lyrics that screamed defiance into the face of polite society, like an extended middle finger given to death, even when embracing her with open thighs, as if she were a lusted after lover. This was the passion that filled Zygonia with the drive to better themselves, to seek out new experiences, to sneak off after the sunset below the clouds that clung to Innsmouth, not with a female lover or a lucky boy attempting to court their way into the massive pile of thrones, but to murder ball arenas of the main hind levels, to the thumping and thrashing squeals of the underhive clubs, which cascaded a cacophony of sound and defiance of the ever-grinding squeals of industry. They sought out the tightest of synth leathers, draping their body in the chains and studs of the sump punks. Their hairstyle was built to mimic the pixie hawks of the Splatterhawks, one of the more notorious merc gangs of the underhive, even down to the splattering of drenched neon highlights. They bent their makeup skills and products acquired through high society to perfect and leave Zygonia as both the alluring, gorgeous man of your dreams and the handsome woman you wished to dominate your sheets. A style that both intrigued and enraged Spire high society for its brash embrace of Underhive's mediocre, wasteful excuse for a culture, while also perfecting the style in a way only Imperium thrones could. A style that also enraged the Underhivers, while it intrigued them on this no-name wannabe from the uppers, unblooded, street naive, while also being cold as razor ice and strong as ceramite. This upstart daughter of the Spire, cramming themselves into every mid-hive club night after night, screaming and serenading along with the Sense DJ's electro-death sump punk acts. It was all a blur, an experience they wanted to relish in for as long as possible, a way to express that one true talent, given it birth and enriched in classes paid for with blood-soaked money. While a handful of thrones wouldn't be counted in an average day up in the spires, a single throne could pay for a week in the mid-hives. And Zygonia's normal monthly allowance was more than most hivers would see in their entire life. Thrones could unlock any door in the mid-hives, get them into any show, buy them the company of the most lavish and decadent, freedom to grow, to explore, to practice with the small-time hive acts that were always hungry for their next free meal. That's when it all changed. They met him, Circo. He had that universal drug-thin physique that had clung to humanity since before the species had managed to spread from Terra. Nothing like the fleshy, water-soft boys they had met in the spires. He was pale, as if visited by death herself nightly, with the faint bioluminescent traces of synth stims spidering throughout his veins. Circo, who had heard Zygonia belting out his own lyrics in perfect melody as he sang them on stage. Circo, who, like the prince out of a fairy tale, had reached across the class divide and taken their hand, drawing them up onto stage. Circo, who had whisked them away into a world filled with pure experiences of the real hive punk rocker. Circo, who had shown them the true underhive. At first, it had been just a few days a month. As a backup singer to Circo himself, Zygonia's voice allowed him to craft melodies that began to draw larger and larger crowds. It was not long before they took center stage with Circo, a couple of times a week, their voice truly expanding as they drank in the adoration and attention of the crowds. It became more difficult to return home each night. Sometimes they would return early in the morning, unable to wash the club from their hair and skin. They began to miss breakfasts, then classes with their earlier tutors, every once in a while even failing to make those important lunch appointments. As a noble-blooded daughter, it wasn't unheard of. Teens with more money than sense are prone to rebellion. It was to be expected. Still, tensions began to rise in the household, Zygonia no longer heeding the rules of their father nor the warnings and worried attention of their mother. They longed always to return to Circo, to the stage, to the club. Each day became an eternity, counting the minutes until the house quieted and they could leave for the night. The voice tutors of the Spire no longer had any value to teach. Their classes had become a waste of time, their ranges and command of pitch no longer holding any spark of interest. They now studied with the screamers, the guttural tribalists, the synth-pop echoes of the sump punks. Each day in the Spire, more and more like a year in an Arbites detention cube. In the mid-hives, Zygonia's celebrity began to blossom. They sang center stage more and more, Circo wooing this young woman, crafting them into a prize he intended to claim. He lavished them with small gifts, mostly purchased with their own thrones, arranged duets with other rockers and punks, toured them to ever greater experiences of the underhive. But Circo played with fire he had yet to fully glimpse, for Zygonia's ambition and quest for a perfect voice grew with them each day. While still naive, they knew that their own celebrity was growing. However, romance is romance, and eventually Zygonia had found themselves in his bed. This man who was as androgynous as they aspired to be. The desire to meld their flesh into one burned almost as brightly as Zygonia's ambition to eventually eclipse him and leave him behind, pushing their talents farther than anyone in the Hive had ever seen. In the Spire, they began to rebel more openly, refusing to dress as a daughter, flaunting their Splatterhawk-inspired fashion openly and in defiance of family and society. They began to miss returning to the Spire for days at a time, staying in the mid-hives, moving with the band from gig to gig, no longer just singing the songs Circo had written, but adding their voice to those songs truly, melding with them, changing each one. With each performance, they pushed their vocal range further, drawing out screams longer, leaving Circo enraptured and his band enthralled. As months passed, Zygonia slowly became the lead in more and more songs, their talent and ambition drowning out the talent of even the most accomplished of the Hive's vocalists, coaches, and tutors. Circo was now not much more than their toy, a lover still for sure, but no longer was it his band. Now they were collectively known as only Zygonia. They would miss weeks at a time. First, father cut off Zygonia's allowances, then began to send house guards to track down and bring her home, by force if necessary. This only fueled their legend in the underhives, adding more to their celebrity as the uppers tried to control the Hive's new pop goddess. No longer was Zygonia seen as the weird girl from the uppers who attempted to merge underhive necessity with Spire fashion. They had become the figurehead of an electro-punk movement, cultural icon. Splatterhawks fashioned hairstyles and tribute. Auxilia offered concert security for free. Warmongers worked as stage crew. And Nutty Jays would tattoo Zygonia's iconic lipstick skull icon anywhere that they had open skin. Four-armed rats knew the lyrics to all their songs, and murder ball arenas would sell out packed standing room only. Finally, father had enough, and one morning when Zygonia decided to return to the Spires, they found that their guard had been tripled, and strict house arrest policies had put into place. But they had learned tricks. Sure, there were the things that they had learned to do with their hands and their mouth, things that could render a man or woman delirious with pleasure, but they had learned other tricks, ways to truly use their voice. So it was, sitting back at their vanity, surrounded by the delicate trappings of a noblewoman of the Spire, that Zygonia made their decision and nodded to themselves, their reflection nodding back just a second later, before standing up and facing those old Phrygian doors. Their soft melodious humming drifted from their lips, becoming purple smoke, rooting through the cracks in the door to wrap around and tear the throats from the house guard that were posted outside. Then with a mere gesture, the doors smashed inward from their hinges, spilling the struggling and dying men into the bedroom. They paused for a second to contemplate the melody these men's ruined throats weaved as they gurgled their last lungfuls of air through ruined and bloody throats. Zygonia memorized those pained and anguished noises. They would make an excellent layer in a new composition. As life leaked out of the men entirely, they savored the last few desperate seconds of this silence before turning deeper into the house and starting a true masterpiece of electropunk, truly savoring their talents in screaming rage and guttural violence, centering themselves with serenades and melodies. The carnage only lasted minutes, and within the cyclonic nature of a good song, it brought Zygonia right back to where they had started, mother and father having run, of all places, to their room where the bloodbath had started. They entered, meaning to make their way to the far wall and hide in the panic room that they had built for their daughter. Zygonia's reflection, however, caught them in the vanity mirror and brought them to a staggering halt. Their daughter's reflection smiled pleasantly at them and waved. Although their daughter was not sitting on the stool before the mirror, nor was she even in the room. Slowly a grin turned wicked. It raised a hand and pointed behind the two. Neither had a chance to fully turn before the room was bathed in blood from their exploding bodies. Zygonia, who had entered behind them, composed themselves for a moment and then closed their unhinged jaw, which made a clicking, rasping sound as it sickeningly ground bone against bone. Their scream had shattered most of the furniture in the room, and a furrowed blast wave had carved a path of destruction through the mess that had been their parents and into the vanity and mirror behind it, shards of which now lay scattered and embedded all over the room, their reflection casting back 100 Zygonias. Some smiled, others winked, some laughed, more than one cried, but in each and every one of them, they no longer appeared human. They were taller, their skin a pale purple, hair no longer splattered neon mohawk, but a black and bone horn crest, eyes drenched pure black, and tongue long, curved, and forked. They now stood clad in only belts, which did nothing to hide their nudity, only seeming to pervert it further. One full breast hung heavy and full, bell-shaped, with pierced nipple erect. The other side of their chest flat and muscled, like a slab of granite carved in the likeness of a god. One hand ended in a wicked crab-like claw, while the others seemed to merge and twist into the handle of a long, wicked, barbed whip. Zygonia noted that they were finally alone in the house, covered in the viscera of their greatest work yet. This simply wouldn't do. She had a concert tonight. He would need to bask in the glow of the admiration of their fans. They would need to drink some of the souls in attendance to feed their talents. After all, if they worshipped you like a goddess, are you not truly a god? Zygonia is a pop star of the Underhive who sells out concerts all the time. And I think one of the reasons that I had a hard time reading this is I made the character androgynous. I made them a they on purpose. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to read they as a pronoun.
It is.
I did reach out to a couple of people in our community for some help with writing this, which was very cool. It was nice to get opinions and make sure that I wasn't stepping on any lines or pissing people off. I had wanted to do the character as a like androgynous person because of the connection to Slaanesh, not because I'm trying to make a statement about anybody.
Yeah, not trying to make a PC statement or anything. It's literally big. I noticed that it definitely is when you said like the one breast and then the other like was a muscled pec. I was like, that's a Slaanesh. Like exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Turned into a demonette, at least basically, in reflection. And like it.
Yeah. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I really like the whole idea of like them turning into, what was her name? Zargonia?
Yeah.
Turning into a demonette, because in segment 36 of what Mark is listening to, the demonette that basically like it's a normal girl, right? Very beautiful, like, you know, gets whatever she wants. Like, a very, very beautiful woman. But like when she, like, the atmosphere changes when she like enters a room. So like, I really like the whole idea behind her being like a normal person, but she's a pop star, an icon, like worshipped, kind of in the same sense of like, oh, but like if she goes too far, she turns into a demonette kind of thing, and, you know, snaps people in half with her claw or something.
It's that whole idea that there's that kernel of skill and that just like need for perfection. And then of course, you know, and I took some cues from some shit that's been happening in real life, you know, that I kind of tried to work in that angle of like father trying to control her, kind of like Britney Spears' father's trying to control Britney Spears' career. And that whole idea that at a certain point there is, you know, and pop stars will talk about this, there is a feedback loop to that. You know, the adoration that comes in pushes them to try harder and to do weirder and more extreme things. And that whole, like, that's
like the wrecking ball kind of thing.
Yeah. Not that I'm trying to say all pop stars are Slaanesh demons, but
no.
I'm pretty sure they are, though.
I mean, it's like the road to it, is it not? Because you're,
the path to good intentions is paved in, the path to hell is paved in good intentions, or whatever the saying is.
All roads lead to Nye.
I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for the feedback, guys. There were a couple of things I realized kind of late into writing the story, and I kind of want to break down in a future creative writing episode how to write horror and how to write creepypastas. There's an idea that you need to kind of introduce the creepy early, and then you need to move away from it. And I kind of tried to do that with the reflection stuff, but you're also supposed to repeat it 3 times.
Oh no, that was dope.
It was really hard to put it in.
I liked it. I think there was maybe one too many, but I did like it.
You're supposed to do it 3 times.
I felt like it was like 5 times. Like, no, because what's his name? When you were explaining, not Zargonia, but the guy, the ex lead singer.
Oh yeah, so the person
Sirio.
that they became obsessed with,
right?
Zerko.
Zerko. Yeah, I felt like that was like Zerko 5 times, but it could have been 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was. I did that on purpose. That was to show that like
their world.
It was to imply the point of Zerko. Yeah.
That was like the turning point.
Yeah. No, I liked it.
It's also the what's it called? Not the fanaticism. When you're enthralled by somebody, there's a word for that.
Like obsessed,
enwrapped.
Obsessed.
Raptured.
They were obsessed with Zerko. Zerko was like the god that they didn't think they could ever become. And then they got the opportunity. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, but that whole idea that like he was singing in the front and they're like, oh, you could be our new lead singer. Like that was in my mind when I was doing this. It's just that whole like, it's good, but it's
very like what was the Motley Crue movie?
Oh
yeah, The Dirt.
The Dirt.
Yeah, that was good. That shit was dope.
Good one.
Yeah, I'm not a big like nonfiction person.
Real nonfiction movie. Yeah,
right.
True life.
The other thing I was gonna say, and I know this is probably one of the hardest things to do, but I really like when you add personal monologue. I'm speaking in the royal you. Like if you were to add personal monologue to it, like what is going through their mind at the time, I actually really enjoy it. It feels more immersive than just kind of just telling the story.
Than what is happening.
Right.
It's difficult to tell. There's a perspective that this is called that I used, but that the idea that like some of it's third person and some of it's you definitely get Zygonia's mental part, but it's being told from a third person perspective.
Right.
Well, and referring to themselves as they is almost in a third person sense.
Right.
Like rather than just by using it as the androgynous vague sense of sexuality, it's also a third person. It's like both simultaneously.
Right.
So it's like
I enjoyed it though. I like it.
Which almost adds to the duality of the character and the transition between being a human and being a daemonette. It's like it wraps up all of those kind of into one nice ball of
creepy.
One nice little ball of creepy with just one word. They.
All right, guys. So we're venturing into cryptid territory over the next couple of episodes of Lorus Obscurus, digging into the Pine Barrens first before talking about the biggest cryptids of North America, including the all-time heavyweight Bigfoot. Tom, I know you're excited, man. I'm excited to hear your stories.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, have you seen the size of his feet?
Right.
I mean, he's probably just going to talk about himself and we're going to be like, whoa.
No. There's a whole myriad of
species. I was taking a shit in the woods this one time.
Species and subspecies and, geology or not geology, geography.
Anthropology.
Yeah. There's also, I got all sorts of stuff.
I know the Bigfoot train has been rolling for a long time. I've been on that thing forever.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Oh yeah.
I would really like to implement a Bigfoot story into Innsmouth.
Yeah,
we need to come up with a
sump foot. With a sump foot. We're gonna come up with a sump foot.
Yeah.
Sump foot.
Yeah.
It's a
man bear pig.
It's a
Were you not here for that? When we were talking about sump foot? Oh, okay.
I got an idea for it right now. It's an ogren that got Gene Stealered a little bit.
Like just 4-armed rat,
but it was like a super shitty Gene Stealer.
It looks like.
Well, I mean, they got rats, so they're all super shitty.
It looks like Goro.
But it's like it's like it wasn't enough Gene Stealer to like really take over it.
It would just be an aberrant.
Just enough to make it like
it would be an aberrant. That's what they're called. They're called aberrants.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just a little not there. He's a little. What's the goofies?
Holy shit! Old sloth.
It's a little sloth.
But like teeth all
like a little sloth. Yeah, a little sloth.
Yeah,
got a fucking like canine coming out of his
cheek. That's our
cheek.
Sumpfoot right there.
That's so funny.
Yeah, good old Sumpfoot. Even as we move away from traditional ghost stories, we still want to hear your creepypastas. We still want to hear your cryptid experiences because we definitely will circle back to this stuff. The best way to get us that stuff is by email at either underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or grimdarkgaming@gmail.com. Also, please, if you've got a chance and you like our content, like, share, and review us. Review us on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Spotify. It's just a little stuff that kind of helps us stand out in the algorithm. We're also on Google Podcasts. We're on Radio One. We're on like 8 or 9 different platforms. Any of those platforms that allow you to review, any of those platforms that allow you to share, any of those platforms that allow you to like, please, 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 however you're listening to us, do that stuff. Let us know where we're at. Let everybody else know where we're at. We have a Discord server. We very, very good Discord community.
Normally I zone out at this point in time and during the podcast, but I am here. Join us on Discord. Make sure you jump on and introduce yourself to the community. We pride ourselves on having an amazing podcast or amazing Discord community. So please, please, please jump on that and reach out to us. It's one of the best ways to keep in contact with us because we're on there all the time. Discord.
I just got one of my coworkers on Discord.
Yeah, I mean,
I was telling Mark about this. So shout out to Dennis. He's one of my new coworkers.
Dennis.
He's pretty new, and he messaged me in the middle of a Teams meeting. He noticed my Teams background was a Warhammer.
Is that the Emperor?
No, one of my buddies.
He's like nice 40K background.
Yeah, I have an Imperial Knight on my background, and like one of my coworkers walked up and was like, "Is that Discord? What is that?"
It's like, how do you do that? Yeah. So I got him in here, and then I got another one of my coworkers to sub to the podcast.
Yeah,
so
join
what's up,
join
Awesome.
our community.
Thank you, Robert. New patron, right?
Yeah.
No, not patron. He just subbed to the podcast.
Oh, it's
and
the
then
podcast.
Dennis
Gotcha.
joined the Discord. He's going to get on the podcast later too.
Right on.
Yeah, jump on that. Get on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, we definitely work on a lot of lore stuff through the Discord. It's one of the ways that, the core tenet to the podcast being lore and creative writing. We have a live community spotlight with Noir coming out soon here on YouTube. So be sure to check that out. We love this stuff. We love community writing. We love sharing the crazy crap we come up with. These guys have brought it up earlier. So time to plug that good old Patreon. You guys want to influence the equipment that we utilize to make the show better. If you guys want to influence the direction that the podcast is going, and if you want some cool perks like access to some custom art and a couple of other things, including we're going to try to do 1 or 2 giveaways a year, I think, head on over to patreon.com/underhive and look at our various levels. All the levels get you into video podcast content. So we record with some webcams, both studios, both the studio there in California and the studio here in Iowa. So you guys can get an idea of what our faces look like. You also get a little bit of behind the scenes. You get all the bloopers, you get all the fuck ups, you get all the restarts. You hear me not be able to pronounce words that I fucking made up, which is great. You hear me not be able to pronounce words that GW made up, which is fucking great too. Lastly, you guys want to track anything that we are doing, we have a link tree set up, which is linktree/underhive. We are diligently working on the idea of maybe having a website. We did buy one. We are getting it prepped and out. We promise that we will get it set at some point.
And thank you all for your continued support.
Yeah, mostly just thanks because I'm glad people like us.
If we didn't have
Speaking
the community.
Community.
Yeah, man. It's our favorite part, guys. It is totally our favorite part. So we've got 3 new patrons. Sam H., thank you very much for joining. Jack A., thank you very much for joining. And Thorfinn Skull Splitter, thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, that's no more.
That's your boy.
Is
So
that
you
his
guys-
real last name?
You guys can either give
marry
us-
this man. I want that last name.
Yeah, I know, right?
You guys can sign up either with your nick or your screen name, or you can sign up with your real name. You can also contact us. You can message us through Discord and let us know what you want us to shout out. We just have to know who you are. I hear Mama Bexy shouting about how she needs these fucking goddamn couches. I'm not sure why, but this is definitely the back room. So I can only imagine. That's been it for us here at 665.66 UHM Chemrat Radio. You know what? Now that I think about it, Kevin, maybe Mama Bex is actually just mad at you for stealing that gal away from her.
This couch
It's all your fault, isn't it?
If you notice, the quality of the cooking here might have gone down after I kidnapped that one.
Yeah, I don't.
couch is sticky.
This is your fault.
It's not really kidnapped. She did say yes. Like it was
okay.
permitted.
It was
Well,
just
then
kidnapped from
there you
Bexy.
go.
Yeah. We just didn't ask Mama for permission.
Remember what the old space trawlers always say: when you find yourselves at a crossroad, one definitely leads to a 4-armed emperor, and they definitely want to separate your left side from your right side so you can walk all paths as easily as possible. It's not help though, it's just murder. All right, guys.
Till
what was the thing? Motherfucker.
That's good. That's good.
Is that the thing?
Oh yeah. You gotta finish it up, dude.
Motherfucker. All right, guys.
Bam, that's a wrap.